I don't think you understand. This is first class. The flight attendant's voice dripped with disdain as she looked Maya up and down. There must be some mistake with your ticket. But what if the real mistake was judging a woman by her appearance? What if the simple-looking passenger being forced out of first class was actually married to the billionaire who owned the entire airline? Would you stay to see the moment when everything changes? Subscribe now to hear the full story and witness justice unfold in the most unexpected way. Maya Johnson traced her finger along the rim of her coffee mug, watching the steam rise in lazy swirls. 3 months. It had been 3 months since she'd last seen Andre, and the apartment felt empty without his laughter filling the modest 2-bedroom space they called home. To anyone passing by, Maya appeared unremarkable, a 23-year-old woman with close-cropped natural hair, minimal makeup, and a penchant for comfortable clothing. Few would guess she'd graduated top of her class from Howard University with dual degrees in business and computer science, or that she'd turned down 6-figure offers from Silicon Valley to work at a community development nonprofit. Just 3 more months, she whispered to herself, checking her phone for messages. Andre's most recent text had been brief, "Miss you. London meetings going well. Talk tonight." Their arrangement was unusual, even they had to admit it. Married just a year ago in a simple ceremony with only their closest friends, they'd agreed that Andre would spend 6 months abroad establishing his business while Maya continued her work in Washington, D.C. They'd promised to live modestly, a value they both shared despite Andre's rapidly growing success. The phone rang, startling Maya from her thoughts. Her mother's voice came through, warm and familiar. "Baby girl, how are you holding up without that husband of yours?" Maya smiled. "I'm managing, Mama. His work is important. So important he can't bring his wife along. What kind of business keeps a newlywed man away for half a year?" Maya sighed. She'd explained Andre's tech consulting work before, but her mother remained skeptical. If only she knew the full story, that Andre wasn't just consulting but building something revolutionary. Something he wanted to succeed on its own merits, not because of connections or privilege. "We agreed on this, Mama. We're building our foundation." After hanging up, Maya opened her laptop and checked her savings account. The numbers made her smile. Between her modest salary and careful budgeting, she had saved enough. The surprise she'd been planning for months was finally within reach. On their small bookshelf sat their wedding photo, Maya in a simple white dress and Andre in a charcoal suit, both beaming with promise. His dark skin contrasted with her medium brown complexion, his tall frame bending slightly to meet her 5'4" height. Soon, she promised the photograph, very soon. The confirmation email arrived with a cheerful ping. Maya's heart raced as she read it again, first class, Washington Dulles to London Heathrow, June 15th. Their first anniversary. The most extravagant purchase she'd ever made, but Andre was worth every penny. Maya had never flown first class before. Growing up in a working-class family in Baltimore, such luxuries were unimaginable. Even now, with a solid education and stable job, she maintained the frugal habits her parents had instilled. But this was special, a declaration of love and a step toward the future Andre was building for them. She hadn't told him she was coming. For 6 months, they'd sustained their relationship through late-night video calls and text messages across time zones. Andre thought they'd be celebrating their anniversary virtually. The thought of his surprised face when she appeared in London made her giddy with anticipation. "You're really not going to tell him?" her friend Tasha asked over lunch, eyebrows raised in amusement. "Absolutely not. The look on his face will be priceless," Maya replied, unable to contain her smile. "Besides, he's been so mysterious about this business venture. It's time I see what's kept my husband away for so long." Tasha tilted her head. "You know, most women would be suspicious of a man who moves to London right after getting married." Maya shook her head. "Andre's not most men. When he made that promise to build something meaningful, I believed him. Still do." Later that evening, as she packed her suitcase, memories flooded back, their first meeting in the university library, where she'd found him struggling with an economics problem she solved in minutes, their first date at a hole-in-the-wall Ethiopian restaurant, the night he proposed on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, no ring but a promise written in a letter that she kept in her nightstand. "We'll build something that matters," he'd written. "Something that changes lives, not just bank accounts." The night before her departure, Andre called as usual. Maya fought to keep her voice steady, to not betray her excitement. "I wish we could be together tomorrow," he said, his voice a low rumble through the speaker. "Me too," she replied, biting her lip to keep from spilling her secret. "But we'll celebrate properly when you're back." 3 more months, he promised. "Then we start our real life together." If only he knew, Maya thought as they said goodnight, that their real life together would resume much sooner than he expected. That night, she barely slept, her mind racing with possibilities. Would he be shocked? Overjoyed? Would she finally understand what had kept him so busy these months? The mystery of Andre's business had been a small wedge between them, not because she doubted him, but because she wanted to share in his dream. Tomorrow, she'd begin to bridge that gap. First class to London, a glimpse into their future, and finally, reunion with the man she loved. The Elite Airways terminal at Dulles International gleamed with polished marble and soft, recessed lighting. Maya adjusted her simple cotton dress and tightened her grip on her carry-on bag, feeling suddenly underdressed amidst business travelers in tailored suits and wealthy tourists dripping with designer labels. "You belong here," she reminded herself, straightening her shoulders as she approached the first-class check-in counter. "You paid for this ticket just like everyone else." The attendant at the counter smiled warmly, checking her information without a second glance at her modest appearance. "Everything looks in order, Ms. Johnson. Enjoy your flight to London." That initial kindness made what followed all the more jarring. At the gate, Maya lined up in the first-class boarding lane, passport and boarding pass in hand. She noticed curious glances from other passengers but kept her eyes forward, focusing on the adventure ahead rather than the judgment around her. "Excuse me." A voice cut through her thoughts, sharp as a blade. "This lane is for first-class passengers only." Maya turned to face a flight attendant, tall, blonde, immaculately groomed, with a name tag reading, Victoria Pierce. Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes, which swept dismissively over Maya's simple dress and natural hair. "I am a first-class passenger," Maya replied, extending her boarding pass. Victoria barely glanced at it. "There must be some mistake. Economy boarding is through that lane." She pointed across the gate area. Maya's cheeks burned, but her voice remained steady. "There's no mistake. I have a first-class ticket." By now, other passengers were watching. Victoria took the boarding pass, examining it with exaggerated scrutiny as a line formed behind Maya. "How exactly did you come by this ticket?" Victoria asked, voice lowered but still audible to those nearby. The implication was clear, and Maya felt a knot form in her stomach. "I purchased it. Through your website. With my credit card." Victoria's perfectly shaped eyebrow arched. "I see. Well, there seems to be a system error. Step aside while I verify this." Maya remained rooted in place. "I'd be happy to wait while you verify, but I won't step out of line. My ticket is valid." A murmur rippled through the gathering crowd. Behind her, a man in an expensive suit sighed loudly. "Some of us have connections to make," he muttered. Victoria's smile tightened as she spoke into her radio. After a brief conversation, she turned back to Maya. "Your ticket has been flagged in our system. I'll need you to come with me." "Flagged for what?" Maya asked, heart pounding. "I'm not at liberty to discuss that here," Victoria replied, voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "Now, if you'll step aside." Humiliation washed over Maya as she followed Victoria to a small desk away from the boarding area. Every eye seemed to follow her, the shabby woman who dared to think she belonged in first class. "Listen," Victoria said once they were away from the crowd, all pretense of courtesy abandoned. "I don't know how you got this ticket, but clearly there's been a mistake. We have standards for our premium cabins." Standards? Maya echoed, disbelief giving way to understanding. You mean I don't look like I can afford it? Victoria's silence was confirmation enough. I want to speak to your supervisor, Maya said, fighting to keep her voice from trembling. My supervisor is busy preparing for departure. Now, we can rebook you in economy, which is clearly more appropriate. Or you can take another flight altogether. The choice was cruel in its simplicity: abandon her anniversary surprise or endure the flight in humiliated defeat. Maya thought of Andre, waiting unknowingly in London. She thought of the months of saving, the careful planning. Fine, she said quietly. Economy. Victoria smiled triumphantly. A wise decision. I'll have your seat reassigned immediately. As Maya boarded later with the economy passengers, she passed through the first-class cabin where Victoria was attending to a white woman approximately Maya's age, dressed in designer clothes. Their eyes met briefly, and Victoria's held a clear message: this is where you don't belong. Maya continued to her economy seat, dignity intact but spirit bruised, unaware that this humiliation was about to intersect with a truth beyond Victoria's wildest imagination. The economy cabin closed around Maya like a too-small coat. Her knees pressed against the seat in front, her elbows tucked tightly against her ribs to avoid invading her seatmate's space. This physical confinement mirrored her emotional state: compressed, restricted, diminished. You okay, honey? The elderly woman beside her had kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. You look like you're carrying the weight of the world. Maya managed a thin smile. Just a difficult start to my journey. Going somewhere special? London. To surprise my husband for our anniversary. The woman patted her hand. How lovely. He's a lucky man. If only Victoria could see beyond appearances, Maya thought. If only she could see the Howard University honors graduate, the woman who turned down Silicon Valley to help underserved communities, the wife embarking on a journey of love. But all Victoria had seen was a young black woman who didn't fit her image of first class. As the plane taxied toward the runway, Maya closed her eyes and steadied her breathing. She would not let this incident poison her surprise for Andre. She would not give Victoria the power to ruin what should be a joyful reunion. The memory of similar moments rose unbidden: the security guard who had followed her through an upscale store, the professor who had expressed surprise at her test scores, the realtor who had tried to steer them toward more suitable neighborhoods. Each time, she had responded with dignified resilience rather than the anger that burned beneath her skin. Would you like something to drink? A different flight attendant stood in the aisle with a cart. Water, please, Maya replied. As the attendant handed her the plastic cup, Victoria passed through economy, conducting a cabin check. Her eyes skimmed over Maya without recognition, the woman who didn't belong in first class now properly invisible in economy. Maya sipped her water and turned to the window. Below, Washington, D.C. shrank into a pattern of lights and darkness. Somewhere down there was their apartment, the life they'd begun building together, the future they dreamed of during late-night conversations in college. We'll create something meaningful, Andre had promised. Something that changes lives. His business venture in London remained shrouded in mystery: tech consulting, he'd said, with potential investors who valued discretion. The details had been frustratingly vague, but Maya had trusted his vision, his integrity, his promise that this separation was temporary but necessary. 7 hours stretched ahead. Maya opened her book but couldn't focus on the words. Instead, she mentally rehearsed her arrival in London, imagining Andre's face when she appeared at his door. Would he be shocked? Delighted? Would the months apart dissolve in an instant? Halfway through the flight, she visited the lavatory. Passing through first class, she glimpsed the luxuries she'd been denied: spacious seats that reclined into beds, passengers enjoying multi-course meals on real china, Victoria performing attentive service with practiced charm. One passenger, a middle-aged white man in an impeccable suit, caught her eye and gave her a curious look, as if sensing she didn't belong in this transitory space either. Maya held his gaze briefly before continuing on her way, refusing to appear furtive or apologetic. Later, As most passengers dozed in the dimmed cabin, Maya remained awake, rehearsing what she would tell Andre about the flight. Nothing, she decided. This incident would not cloud their reunion. There would be time enough later for discussions about the subtle indignities that shaped their different experiences of the world. For now, she would focus on love, on anniversary surprises, on the joy of seeing his face after 3 long months apart. Victoria and her prejudices would remain on the plane, left behind in the contrail as Maya stepped into her future. Andre Williams stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his London office, watching planes approach Heathrow in the distance. Each aircraft bore his company's distinctive blue and silver livery, Elite Airways, the airline he'd built from a modest inheritance and boundless determination. The quarterly numbers exceed projections by 17%, sir, said Harriet, his chief financial officer. The board is quite pleased. Andre nodded absently, his mind elsewhere. Tomorrow was his first anniversary with Maya, and they'd be celebrating across an ocean, another sacrifice in a year full of them. And the rebranding initiative, he asked, turning from the window. On schedule. The focus groups respond positively to the emphasis on dignity and accessibility in luxury travel. Dignity. The word resonated with Andre. His entire business philosophy rested on that foundation, that luxury should be accessible without pretension, that excellence could coexist with equality. It was why he'd kept his ownership private, why he'd insisted on building Elite Airways without leveraging his family name or Maya's brilliance. My wife would approve, he said with a small smile. She's always valued substance over show. Harriet returned the smile. When will she be joining you in London? Another 3 months. We agreed I'd establish the European operations first. He didn't add that this separation was testing his resolve daily, that their small apartment in D.C. felt more like home than this sleek penthouse with its stunning views. His phone buzzed, a text from Maya, missing you especially today. Can't wait for our call tonight. Andre typed a quick reply, fighting the urge to tell her to pack her bags and come immediately. Patience, he reminded himself. The foundation they were building, both in their marriage and in his business, would be worth the wait. Sir, Harriet interrupted his thoughts, there's something you should know. We've received a passenger complaint about discriminatory treatment on flight EA-107 from Washington. Andre frowned. Details? A first-class passenger was allegedly reassigned to economy based on appearance factors. The initial report is concerning. Investigate immediately. Get me a full report by tomorrow. His tone left no room for delay. If there's truth to it, I want action taken. After Harriet left, Andre turned back to the window. Elite Airways had been born from his desire to transform the travel experience, to create an airline where everyone was treated with dignity regardless of background. The idea that discrimination might exist within his company cut deeply. If Maya were here, she'd know exactly how to address it. Her insight into community relations had shaped many of his policies, though few at the company knew of her influence. He'd insisted on making his own way, on proving himself without connections or privilege, but he missed her counsel daily. 3 more months of separation. The thought weighed on him as he prepared for tomorrow's board meeting, unaware that his carefully constructed worlds were about to collide in ways he never anticipated. The economy cabin air grew stale as the transatlantic flight entered its 5th hour. Maya shifted uncomfortably in her narrow seat, her neck stiff from the awkward angle. Sleep had eluded her despite her exhaustion, her mind replaying the humiliation at boarding and anticipating the reunion with Andre. Drink service, announced a flight attendant moving down the aisle with a cart. Maya accepted a cup of water, sipping slowly while observing the cabin crew. Victoria appeared periodically, her perfect makeup and composed demeanor unchanged despite the long flight. Each time she passed through economy, her eyes skimmed over Maya without recognition, the woman who didn't belong in first class now properly invisible. During one such pass, Victoria stopped to speak with another flight attendant just rows ahead. Though they kept their voices low, fragments of conversation drifted back to Maya. Can you believe, tried to board first class. Dressed like she was heading to Walmart. Probably used someone else's credit card. The words stung, but Maya maintained her composure, dignity a shield against their ignorance. The elderly woman beside her squeezed her hand in silent solidarity, having overheard as well. Midway through the flight, Maya stood to stretch her legs. The narrow aisle barely accommodated her as she made her way toward the lavatory. Passing through the curtain that separated economy from premium cabins, she caught a glimpse of first class, the world she'd been denied. Spacious seats reclined into beds, passengers enjoyed fresh meals on real china, and Victoria performed attentive service with practiced charm. The stark contrast with economy's cramped conditions and plastic cups made the discrimination even more glaring. As she waited for the lavatory, Maya overheard a conversation between two businessmen in the first row. Elite Airways has transformed since the ownership change, said one, swirling amber liquid in a crystal glass. The service is impeccable. Indeed, his companion replied. Though no one seems to know much about the new owner. Quite the mystery man. I heard he's young, brilliant. Built the airline from near bankruptcy to industry leader in 3 years. Whoever he is, he values his privacy. Not even a photo in the annual report. Maya's curiosity piqued. Andre had mentioned consulting for an airline, but he'd been frustratingly vague about details. Could this be connected to his work? She made a mental note to ask him once they were reunited. Returning to her seat, Maya found Victoria blocking her path, eyes narrowed in recognition. Excuse me, Maya said quietly. Victoria didn't budge immediately. Passengers should remain in their ticketed cabins, she said, voice dripping with artificial sweetness. I was using the lavatory, Maya replied evenly. Unless that's restricted to first-class passengers as well. A flash of irritation crossed Victoria's perfect features before she stepped aside. Enjoy the remainder of your flight in economy, where you belong. The words were spoken softly enough that only Maya could hear, but loud enough to leave no doubt about their intention. The message was clear, know your place. Back in her seat, Maya closed her eyes, focusing on her breathing to calm the anger rising within her. This woman had no idea who she was, not just Maya Johnson from Baltimore, but Maya Johnson Williams, wife of, but no, even she didn't know exactly what Andre had built in London. His desire for independence, to succeed on his own merits, had created a gap in their shared knowledge. Not long now, the elderly woman beside her said kindly. London's worth any trouble getting there. Maya nodded, summoning a smile. I'm sure it is. As the flight continued, she caught Victoria watching her several times from the galley, expression unreadable. Something about their exchange had unsettled the flight attendant, though her composure remained intact. The captain announced their approach to London, and Maya's anticipation began to overshadow the unpleasantness of the journey. Soon she would see Andre, feel his arms around her, share the details of their months apart. Victoria and Elite Airways would become an unpleasant memory, a story perhaps to share someday when the sting had faded. The plane began its descent into Heathrow, the city's lights emerging through scattered clouds. Maya gathered her belongings, mentally rehearsing her path through the airport to the address Andre had shared for his temporary London home. Little did she know that her journey's true significance was yet to unfold, or that the worlds of Maya Johnson and Elite Airways were more deeply intertwined than she could possibly imagine. The immigration officer stamped Maya's passport with a dull thud. Welcome to London. Purpose of your visit? Visiting my husband, she replied, mustering a smile despite her exhaustion. Enjoy your stay, Mrs. Johnson. The formality of her maiden name on her passport, a detail she hadn't updated yet, felt suddenly significant. In Washington, she was Maya Johnson, nonprofit program coordinator. Here in London, she would reconnect with her identity as Maya Johnson Williams, wife of Andre, whose mysterious business had kept them apart for 3 months. The arrivals hall bustled with activity, drivers holding name cards, families embracing reunited members, tourists consulting maps. Maya adjusted her carry-on bag and moved toward the exit, her steps quickening with anticipation. The humid London air hit her as the automatic doors slid open. Maya checked the address on her phone one last time, preparing to hail a black cab for the final leg of her journey. That's when she saw him. André stood beside a sleek car, tall and striking in a well-tailored gray suit that contrasted with his dark skin. He was looking down at his phone, unaware of her presence. Maya froze, confusion replacing excitement. He wasn't supposed to be here, that was the whole point of the surprise. Before she could process this unexpected development, André looked up. Their eyes met across the crowd, and his expression transformed from distraction to utter disbelief. Maya. His voice carried through the noise as he moved toward her. She remained rooted in place, torn between disappointment at the ruined surprise and joy at seeing him sooner than expected. How did you know? They collided in an embrace that erased 3 months of separation. André lifted her slightly, his familiar scent enveloping her as he buried his face in her neck. I didn't, he murmured against her skin. I was picking up an investor. What are you doing here? Maya pulled back to see his face, reading the genuine shock in his eyes. Surprising you for our anniversary. Tomorrow. André's laugh rumbled deep in his chest. You incredible woman. He cupped her face in his hands. Best anniversary gift possible. As he led her to the waiting car, Maya felt the weight of the flight begin to lift. The driver took her bag with a respectful nod, and André held the door for her, his hand warm against the small of her back. You must be exhausted, he said once they were seated, arm around her shoulders. How was the flight? The question was innocent, conversational, but it brought Victoria's condescending smile and cutting words rushing back. Maya hesitated, unwilling to taint their reunion with that ugliness. Long, she said simply. But worth it to see your face when you spotted me. André studied her with the attentiveness that had first drawn her to him, the sense that when he looked at you, he really saw you. There's something you're not telling me. Maya squeezed his hand. Later. Right now, I just want to be with you. The car moved smoothly through London traffic, passing landmarks Maya had only seen in photographs. Under different circumstances, she might have pressed her face to the window like an excited tourist. Instead, she leaned against André's solid presence, making up for months of distance. Your work is going well, she asked. Something flickered across his features, reservation, perhaps, or the same guardedness that had characterized their conversations about his London business. Better than expected, he said. In fact, I have something important to show you tomorrow. More important than our anniversary. He kissed her forehead. Part of our anniversary. Trust me. The car turned into an elegant street lined with Georgian townhouses, stopping before one with a glossy black door. Maya raised an eyebrow at the upscale address, a stark contrast to their modest apartment in D.C. Temporary housing, André explained, reading her expression. Provided by the company. The interior was equally impressive, high ceilings, tasteful furnishings, modern art on the walls. Not André's personal style, Maya noted, but certainly befitting a successful business consultant. Home for the next 3 months, André said, setting her bag down in a spacious bedroom. Though now that you're here, maybe we should talk about accelerating our timeline. Maya kicked off her shoes, suddenly overwhelmed by the journey, the surprise, the lingering discomfort from her experience on the plane. She sank onto the edge of the bed, and André immediately sat beside her, concern evident in his eyes. What is it, Maya? What happened? She looked at her husband, the man who had captivated her with his intelligence, his integrity, his vision for making a difference. Whatever he was building here in London, she trusted it was worthwhile. The incident on the plane seemed small by comparison. Nothing that matters now, she said, resting her head on his shoulder. I'm just glad to be here. André wrapped her in his arms, his embrace a sanctuary after the longest day. Rest, he whispered. Tomorrow, we celebrate properly. As exhaustion finally claimed her, Maya drifted to sleep in André's arms, unaware that their anniversary would bring revelations far beyond anything she had anticipated. Morning light filtered through unfamiliar curtains, rousing Maya from deep sleep. For a moment, she struggled to place herself, the plush bedding, the elegant room, the absence of traffic noise from their DC apartment. Then the events of yesterday crashed back, the flight, Victoria's discrimination, the unexpected reunion with Andre. The space beside her was empty, but the scent of coffee beckoned from beyond the bedroom door. Maya found Andre in the kitchen, his tall frame bent over a laptop, brow furrowed in concentration. He wore casual clothes, a simple t-shirt and jeans, that reminded her of their college days. "There she is," he said, looking up with a smile that still made her heart skip. "Happy anniversary, Mrs. Williams." Maya accepted the coffee mug he offered, along with a lingering kiss. "Happy anniversary. Though I'm not sure anything can top the surprise of finding you waiting at the airport." Andre's expression turned serious. "About that. You never did tell me what happened on the flight." The gentle probe reopened yesterday's wound. Maya sipped her coffee, buying time as she debated how much to share. Their anniversary shouldn't be overshadowed by Victoria's prejudice, yet honesty had always been their foundation. "It's nothing, really," she began, but Andre's steady gaze made clear he wasn't accepting deflection. With a sigh, Maya set down her mug. "I bought a first-class ticket, my big splurge for our anniversary. But at boarding, a flight attendant." She paused, reliving the humiliation. "She decided I didn't belong there." Andre's body tensed. "What do you mean?" "She took one look at me, young black woman, simple dress, and decided I couldn't possibly have a legitimate first-class ticket. Made a scene at the gate, said my ticket was flagged, then forced me to choose between economy or missing the flight altogether." Andre stood abruptly, pacing the kitchen. "What airline?" His voice was dangerously quiet. "Elite Airways. Does that matter?" He froze mid-step, back to her, shoulders rigid. "Did you get the flight attendant's name?" "Victoria Pierce. It was on her name tag." Maya watched confusion cross Andre's face. "Wait, is that the airline you've been consulting for?" Andre turned slowly, something unreadable in his expression. "Maya, there's something I need to tell you. Something I've been waiting for the right moment to share." The gravity in his voice sent a chill through her. "Andre, what is it?" "Whatever consulting work you're doing." "I'm not consulting for Elite Airways," he interrupted. "I own it." The words hung in the air between them, impossible to process immediately. Maya stared at her husband, certain she'd misheard. "You, what?" Andre ran a hand over his close-cropped hair, a nervous gesture she recognized from their early dating days. "I own Elite Airways. All of it." Maya set her mug down with deliberate care, afraid she might drop it otherwise. "The airline I just flew here on. The billion-dollar international carrier. That Elite Airways?" He nodded. "I used my inheritance from Grandpa Williams as seed capital 3 years ago, buying a failing regional airline. Rebranded, restructured, expanded. I wanted to build something meaningful, something that could change how people experience travel." Maya tried to reconcile this revelation with their modest life in D.C., with the man who insisted on taking the metro instead of owning a car, who carefully budgeted for date nights, who had never once hinted at the scale of wealth this would imply. "Why the secrecy? Why not tell me?" Andre sat across from her, reaching for her hands. "At first, because it was all so tenuous. Then, when success came faster than I expected, because I wanted to succeed on my own merits, not family connections or privilege." He squeezed her fingers. "And I wanted us to have a normal life, to know our relationship was built on us, not wealth or status." Maya processed this, pieces falling into place, his mysterious business trips, vague explanations, the separation these past months. "So you moved to London to establish our European headquarters. The 6-month timeline was real, I need to be here to oversee the expansion. But I should have been honest about what I was building." He looked down at their joined hands. "I'm sorry, Maya." The magnitude of his accomplishment began to dawn on her. Her husband, not yet 30, had built an international airline from nearly nothing. Pride surged alongside lingering hurt at the deception. "I understand why you did it," she said finally. "But Andre, we're partners. No more secrets between us." Relief softened his features. No more secrets. Then the implications of his revelation collided with yesterday's humiliation. Maya pulled her hands away. "Wait. Victoria Pierce works for you. What happened on that flight happened on your airline." Andre's expression darkened. "Yes. And I promise you, it will be addressed immediately. I received a report about an incident on that flight but had no idea." His voice trailed off, jaw tightening. "The policy violations alone are grounds for termination, but the fact that it was you—" "No," Maya interrupted. "Don't make it about me being your wife. That's exactly the kind of privilege she assumed I was claiming. This needs to be about the policy, about the principle." Andre studied her face. "You're right. As always." He reached for his phone. "I need to make some calls. Then we're going to have a very different anniversary celebration than I planned." Maya watched him dial, his demeanor shifting from husband to CEO, authority settling over him like a well-tailored suit. This was a side of Andre she'd glimpsed in college but never fully witnessed, the leader, the visionary, the force behind an enterprise that touched thousands of lives daily. "Harriet," he said into the phone, "I need a company-wide meeting today." "Yes, on our anniversary. It's about the incident on EA 107. "Yes, that one. It just became personal." 3 days later, Maya found herself back at Heathrow, this time with Andre by her side as they prepared to board Elite Airways flight EA 108 to Washington, D.C. Their anniversary celebration had been unlike anything she could have imagined, a whirlwind of revelations, intense discussions about the future of the airline, and precious moments reconnecting as husband and wife. "Are you sure about this?" Maya asked as they approached the first-class check-in. "We could have taken a private flight." Andre shook his head. "That would defeat the purpose. I need to experience our service as passengers do. Besides, I want every employee to see that the CEO and his wife fly commercial, just like our customers." The check-in agent's eyes widened in recognition. Word had spread quickly through the company about the CEO's wife and the incident on EA 107. Maya noticed the young woman's nervous glance at her plain jeans and sweater, simple but dignified attire that reflected her personal style rather than any concession to first-class standards. "Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Williams," the agent said, her voice carefully professional. "Everything is prepared for your flight today." "Thank you, Rebecca," Andre replied, reading her name tag. "We appreciate your assistance." As they moved toward security, Maya observed the subtle changes in how staff interacted with passengers, more attentive, less judgmental, eyes that lingered on faces rather than clothing or accessories. Andre's swift response to the incident was already filtering through the organization. "You've made them nervous," Maya noted quietly. "Good," Andre replied. "A little discomfort drives change. Though I prefer they be motivated by principle rather than fear of the boss's wife appearing unannounced." Maya laughed, linking her arm through his. "I'm still getting used to that part, being the boss's wife." "You're much more than that," Andre said seriously. "After watching you handle that meeting, I'm thinking Elite Airways could benefit from your expertise in community relations. If you're interested, of course." The offer was tempting, a chance to help shape the company's future, to ensure its practices aligned with the values they shared. Maya promised to consider it once they were back in D.C. At the gate, Maya recognized a familiar figure attending to boarding procedures. Victoria Pierce stood straight-backed and professional, though the confidence she projected days earlier had visibly diminished. Her eyes widened slightly as she spotted them approaching. "Mr. and Mrs. Williams," Victoria greeted them, voice carefully modulated. "Welcome to Flight EA 108. Andre nodded cordially. Maya noticed his deliberate neutrality, not warm, but not punitive either. The decision they'd reached about Victoria's continued employment had been difficult but fair, a formal reprimand, mandatory training, and reassignment to mixed-class duties where she would serve passengers of all backgrounds. "Thank you, Ms. Pierce," Maya replied with equal professionalism. As they settled into their first-class seats, Maya observed the cabin through new eyes, not just as a passenger, but as someone connected to the airline's leadership. Flight attendants moved efficiently through pre-departure routines, their attention to detail evident in every interaction. "It's surreal," she whispered to Andre. 3 days ago, I was denied entry to this very cabin. Now everyone's watching to see how the owner's wife reacts to their service." Andre squeezed her hand. "Use that power wisely, Mrs. Williams." "I intend to." Throughout the flight, Maya noted how Victoria performed her duties, stiffly at first, then with increasing composure as the hours passed. When she approached to offer menu selections, her hand trembled slightly. "Mrs. Williams, would you prefer the salmon or beef entree?" "The salmon, please." Maya paused, then added, "And Ms. Pierce. Thank you for your professionalism today." Victoria's surprise was evident, though she quickly masked it. "Just doing my job, ma'am." "That's all anyone was asking for," Maya replied quietly. Later, as most passengers dozed in the dimmed cabin, Andre and Maya spoke in low voices about their plans. The 6-month separation would end, Maya would return to London with him after settling affairs in D.C. They would divide their time between cities as the European expansion progressed. "I'm thinking about how we can use Elite Airways as a platform for change," Andre said. "Diverse hiring practices, community investment, environmental sustainability. The airline that reflects the world it serves," Maya suggested. "Not just in marketing materials, but in genuine practice." When Victoria passed by during final service, Maya noticed something different in her demeanor, a thoughtfulness that hadn't been present before, perhaps the beginning of understanding. "Miss Pierce," Maya called softly. "May I ask you something?" Victoria approached cautiously. "Yes, Mrs. Williams." "What made you decide to become a flight attendant?" The unexpected question seemed to catch Victoria off guard. I wanted to see the world. To make people's journeys special." Maya nodded. "Everyone's journeys. Remember that." As the plane began its descent into Washington, Maya reflected on her own journey, from nonprofit coordinator to airline owner's wife, from passenger denied her rightful seat to potential shaper of company policy. The path ahead was not what she'd envisioned when planning her anniversary surprise, but it offered unexpected opportunities to create meaningful change. Victoria's final announcement echoed through the cabin. "On behalf of Elite Airways and our entire crew, we thank you for flying with us today. We hope we've made your journey exceptional, and we look forward to welcoming you aboard again soon." Maya caught the flight attendant's eye as the words were spoken, a small moment of connection that acknowledged a shared understanding. The journey, for all of them, was just beginning. 1 month after their return to Washington, Maya stood in the newly established Elite Airways headquarters in D.C., watching a diverse group of flight attendant trainees file into the conference room. Today marked the launch of the company's comprehensive anti-bias training program, an initiative she had helped design in her new role as Director of Community Relations and Corporate Responsibility. "Nervous?" Andre asked, joining her at the observation window. "A little," she admitted. "It's one thing to identify the problem, another to create lasting change." Inside the room, trainees settled into their seats, their expressions ranging from curious to skeptical. Among them sat Victoria Pierce, transferred from London to participate in the program's implementation. Her demotion from senior flight attendant had been significant, but not career-ending, a decision Maya and Andre had reached together after considerable discussion. "It's time," Andre said, squeezing her hand before they entered. The room quieted immediately. Although Maya had been introduced to the staff through company-wide emails, this was many employees' first time seeing her in person. She felt their curious gazes as she took her position at the front of the room. "Good morning," she began. "I'm Maya Johnson-Williams, your new Director of Community Relations. Some of you may know me as the passenger from Flight EA-107, or simply as the CEO's wife. Today, I'd like you to know me as a partner in building the kind of airline where every passenger is treated with dignity, regardless of appearance, background, or circumstance. She made eye contact with Victoria, who held her gaze steadily, a small but significant improvement from the avoidance of their first post-incident interactions. I'm not here to shame anyone or dwell on past incidents, Maya continued. I'm here because Elite Airways has an opportunity to lead our industry in creating truly inclusive luxury travel experiences. Andre stepped forward. What happened to Maya could have happened to any passenger who didn't fit someone's mental image of first class. But Elite Airways isn't about reinforcing those outdated notions, it's about challenging them. Victoria raised her hand, an unexpected move that silenced the murmurs in the room. May I speak? She asked, her voice clear despite obvious nervousness. Andre nodded, exchanging a glance with Maya. Victoria stood, addressing her colleagues rather than just the leadership. I've worked for 3 airlines over 12 years. At each one, we developed shorthand for identifying potential problems. We called it passenger profiling. But it was really just bias in professional clothing. The admission hung in the air, bold in its honesty. What happened with Mrs. Williams forced me to confront something uncomfortable, Victoria continued. I wasn't applying company policy that day. I was applying my own prejudices about who belongs where. She turned to Maya. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm committing to change, not just for my career, but because it's right. Maya hadn't expected this public acknowledgement. The training program had been designed with the assumption that resistance would be the primary obstacle. Victoria's willingness to speak openly created an opening that might help others recognize their own biases. Thank you, Ms. Pierce, Maya said. That's exactly the kind of honest reflection this program hopes to encourage. The tension in the room shifted, not disappeared, but transformed into something more productive. As Maya launched into the training content, she noted the engaged expressions, the thoughtful questions, the absence of the defensive posturing she'd anticipated. Later, as the trainees broke into discussion groups, Victoria approached Maya and Andre in the corridor. Mr. and Mrs. Williams, may I have a word? Andre nodded. Of course. I wanted to thank you, Victoria said, her usual polish replaced by genuine emotion. Not for keeping me employed, that was more than I deserved, but for forcing me to see myself clearly. It hasn't been comfortable, but it's been necessary. Maya studied the woman who had humiliated her that day at Dulles, the perfectly groomed exterior now housing what appeared to be genuine remorse. Discomfort is often where growth begins, Maya replied. What matters is what you do with it. Victoria nodded. I'd like to be part of the solution. I've been in this industry a long time, seen how discrimination operates behind professional smiles. If you'll allow it, I want to help identify those patterns so we can address them systemically. The offer was unexpected but potentially valuable. Maya glanced at Andre, whose slight nod indicated his support for her decision. We'll start with the training program, Maya decided. Your perspective could help make it more effective. After that, we'll evaluate next steps. As Victoria rejoined her colleagues, Andre turned to Maya with admiration. You continue to amaze me. Most people in your position would have demanded her termination. Firing one flight attendant doesn't change a culture, Maya replied. Sometimes the person who caused the harm is exactly who needs to be part of fixing it. Their conversation was interrupted by Harriet approaching with a tablet in hand. Preliminary data from our customer experience audit, she reported. The patterns are concerning, but identifying them is the first step toward improvement. As they reviewed the findings together, Maya felt a complex mix of emotions, disappointment at how common such incidents had been, determination to drive meaningful change, and unexpected hope sparked by Victoria's transformation. The airline Andre had built was flawed, as all human institutions are, but its leadership was committed to something better. This is just the beginning, Andre said, his voice carrying the same passion that had first attracted Maya years ago in that university library. Together, we're going to build an airline that truly embodies dignity for all. The promise resonated through the corridors of the headquarters, a commitment that would guide them in the challenging work ahead. 6 months later, Maya stood in the gleaming new terminal at Dulles International Airport, watching passengers flow through the Elite Airways first-class check-in area. The demographic mix was noticeably diverse: young professionals alongside retirees, families with children beside solo travelers, people of all backgrounds united by their choice to fly with an airline that had recently been recognized for its revolutionary approach to inclusive luxury travel. "What do you think?" Andre asked, joining her after concluding a meeting with airport officials. "I think we're making progress," Maya replied, smiling as she observed a young black woman in casual clothing being treated with the same deference as an older white executive in an expensive suit. "Slow but meaningful progress." The past 6 months have been a whirlwind of activity, implementing the comprehensive anti-bias training program, revising hiring practices, establishing new customer service protocols, and most importantly, creating accountability systems to ensure these changes took root throughout the organization. The quarterly report shows customer satisfaction at an all-time high, Andre noted. And applications for employment have increased by 30%, particularly among candidates from underrepresented groups. Maya nodded. People want to be part of something meaningful. An airline that stands for dignity isn't just good ethics, it's good business. Their conversation was interrupted by the approach of Victoria Pierce, now serving as the training coordinator for the anti-bias program. Her transformation had been remarkable, from embodiment of the problem to committed advocate for the solution. "Mrs. Williams, the new trainee group has completed their first assessment," Victoria reported. "Results are promising. They're identifying potential bias scenarios with 92% accuracy." "Excellent. And how about the customer feedback implementation?" "The new system goes live next week. Every passenger complaint with potential discrimination elements will be flagged for immediate review by the diversity team." As Victoria departed to continue her duties, Maya turned back to Andre. "Did you ever imagine this is where we'd be when you started the airline? Or when I surprised you in London?" Andre laughed, shaking his head. "I had visions of transforming the industry, but I never anticipated the catalyst would be my wife being denied her rightful seat." His expression grew serious. "Your experience forced us to confront issues I might have otherwise addressed too slowly or too superficially." They walked together through the terminal toward the gates, passing the spot where Maya had once been publicly humiliated. Now, a large display highlighted Elite Airways' commitment to dignity for all passengers, featuring testimonials from diverse customers and employees. "We still have work to do," Maya acknowledged. "Changing a culture doesn't happen overnight." "But it does happen," Andre replied, "when people of principle refuse to accept the status quo." As they approached the first-class lounge, a staff member welcomed them warmly. Inside, Maya noted how the space had been redesigned to be more welcoming, art from diverse creators adorning the walls, a range of complimentary foods representing global cuisines, staff trained to offer assistance without presumption or judgment. Maya's new role had expanded beyond addressing bias to reimagining the entire passenger experience through a lens of inclusion and respect. Her background in community development had proved invaluable in understanding how spaces and services could either welcome or alienate different groups. "The board meeting went well?" she asked as they settled into comfortable chairs. Andre nodded. "Very. Your proposal for community investment programs in the cities we serve was approved unanimously. They're particularly excited about the scholarship initiative for underprivileged students interested in aviation careers." Maya smiled, satisfaction warming her. From the outside, their life might seem to have changed dramatically. The modest apartment in D.C. exchanged for homes in multiple cities, non-profit work expanded to corporate leadership, private moments transformed into public influence. Yet the core remained the same, their shared commitment to creating meaningful change in the world. "Maya Johnson from Baltimore," Andre mused, taking her hand. "Who would have thought that being denied a seat would lead to transforming an entire airline?" "Maya Johnson Williams," she corrected with a smile. And it wasn't being denied the seat that mattered, it was refusing to accept that denial as the end of the story. Around them, the airport hummed with activity, countless journeys beginning, continuing, concluding. Within that flow of humanity, Elite Airways now stood as something more than just another carrier, a testament to the power of dignity as both a principle and a practice. The simple woman denied her first-class seat had indeed been unaware that her husband owned the airline. But more importantly, the airline had been unaware of the transformation that woman would inspire, a transformation that extended far beyond one flight, one incident, or even one company, touching the fundamental question of who belongs where in our shared world. Dear friend, this story reminds us that dignity isn't a privilege, it's a right that belongs to everyone regardless of appearance, background, or circumstance. When we judge others based solely on how they look, we miss the full depth of who they truly are. Your experiences with discrimination matter, and your voice deserves to be heard. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more powerful narratives that challenge prejudice and celebrate the triumph of human dignity. Together, we can create a world where no one is denied their rightful place.